Guys, the Odyssey absolutely sucked, and I would not recommend you to watch it at all. I watched the movie with high hopes as a fan of mythology, Greek mythology, and as a fan of history. I was hoping for an adventure with a lot of fun monsters and witches and creatures, and what we got was a political message covered up in CGI and island hopping. It was terribly boring as a movie. The dialogues were extremely weak. And we're going to dive into some of the 10 reasons why I absolutely hated this movie. Now, let's talk about the casting for one. They had Matt Damon, the most generic actor in Hollywood currently, who just plays one character, and that's Matt Damon, as the main character. And then they had Tom Holland playing an extremely weak man who was belittled by level one suitors, generic villains, and his own mother. And we had Anne Hathaway, just she plays the same role in every movie. She just plays Anne Hathaway, which is a brooding, kind of angry woman who's just yearning for a better time, I guess. And the rest of the cast were just forced DIY diversity hires, which were terrible, absolutely terrible. Now, as a colored person, when I watch a movie, I would appreciate a bit of consistency. I don't want to see Indians, Iranians, Africans in a Greek mythology. I don't want to see Helen of Troy to be some black lady. I don't, you know. Similarly, how I wouldn't want to see Prince of Persia to be a, Nordic actor. It would be misplaced and it's awkward and it just takes you right out of the movie and just it screams political messaging rather than mythology or fun movie. Just on the Helen of Troy, if you look at the movie Troy and you look at this movie and you compare the Helen of Troy's, it's night and day. Here, it's almost like they purposefully wanted to make Lupita not so good looking. They put a scar on her face. The the wig that she was wearing was terrible. It's almost like they wanted to say that, look, she's ugly, and the whole war was nonsensical anyways, and it wasn't due to her. Well, that's Christopher Nolan's interpretation, and he's dastardizing the movie as a whole. And I thought it was just very weak acting from everybody all around. They had Shane from Walking Dead acting like Anna Gurman's brother, or whatever, however you say that name. And every time he would speak, Lupita would turn around and backspeak at him, just say little lines. Just really annoying character and weak acting all around there. They had a couple of Indian people and brown people in the boat playing along with Odysseus and going along really off-putting. You wanted to see Greeks in that position, and it's a movie about Greeks invading Troy. Troy is in Turkey, you could say, where Istanbul is, and Greece is Greece, right? They might have had Africans, but Africans would have not been the Helen of Troy, and nor would Indians be part of the ships going to invade Troy. Just ridiculous, out of touch, and again, forced diversity for the sake of it. Then you had the environment. The environment just hugely misplaced. I mean, they were shooting pretty much in England and Ireland rather than Greece. Greece, you imagine sunny, hot, colorful kind of scenes. You had the exact opposite here. You had dark, dingy, foggy, islands that, with high cliffs, almost resembling UK and Ireland, rather than anything to do with the world of Greece or Greek mythologies. The island where Circe was extremely ugly, and it honestly just looked like wintertime in Ireland. The bit where they had these large men in iron armor, that again looked like Nordic countries. They did not look like Greece or Turkey. And then what else? The island where Odysseus lives, actually, again, a terribly ugly, and it felt like Ireland. It did not feel like it had pebble beaches like Brighton. So what are we doing here? I mean, just if you're going to shoot a movie about Greek mythology, you might as well shoot in Greece. You might not want to shoot in Ireland. You might not want to make your movie dark, dingy, and like Dark Knight Rises. Um, that's what this movie felt like. It felt like Dark Knight Rises with just replacement of the storyline from Batman to Odysseus. The exact same kind of plot from Dark Knight Rises, nothing different. Just shallow. I mean, if you're going there for an adventure, all you're going to get is a bunch of island hopping, Christopher Nolan scenes where loud music plays or loud noise plays while something is ticking down and they got to do something real quick, and then there's music playing and there's things happening, and then finally the door opens and a bunch of stuff happens, and then we're off to the next scene and just completely away from the context that we were watching. The flow was pretty weak in this movie. We'd go from high paced flow to just suddenly Anne Hathaway crying about how she's not given a chance to run stuff, and how it's always men that run stuff, and how she should have been given a chance to be the queen. Just utter nonsense again from political messaging, and just nonsense from Anne Hathaway and Christopher Nolan. Now let's get into some of the island hoppings as they were doing, and some of the characters and adventures that they faced. So Odysseus is throwing a fit because he apparently was traumatized from the sacking of Troy. Now, it was his idea to break Zeus's law and fit a bunch of men in a horse and have those men starve and have toilet thrown on them and drown because they put it right next to the fucking tide instead of moving the horse down a little bit. Basically, the movie is gaslighting you for the premise that they set up. So he's traumatized because they sacked Troy and his men committed heinous crimes, and he's being haunted by the spirit or the hallucination of a girl who his men killed, not him, right? His men killed that girl, not him, and yet she is haunting him. I mean, for as far as we know, he didn't really do anything bad, but his men did most of the bad actions, like raping, pillaging, and looting, and sacking the city. He just walked around, just shocked, in utter shock in a movie, right? I mean, he killed like 2 soldiers in that whole sacking of Troy, which was ridiculous. But then he spends the entire movie throwing a fit, acting like that little sacking changed him, as if this wasn't a common practice in war, or if he hadn't done this before and that was his first city that he ever conquered. So yeah, he's just throwing a huge fit, and he's meant to now suffer right through the journey. His men are going back. He's like, no, let's take a shortcut, guys. Let's go sack a couple of islands and let's loot and kill more people, and then we'll just go back home right after the looting of these more people. So he's meant to suffer for these actions that he's committed, right? But he doesn't suffer at all. Everybody else suffers, his men suffer, but he actually has a pretty good time, I would say, throughout this adventure. So, I mean, I'll talk about one of the islands, so the witch, right? They land on this witch's island. Now, in the mythology, she's meant to be beautiful. Here, she's just, again, a 50-year-old Irish woman who is into witchcraft. She feeds the army, the little soldiers that they're there, and she morphs them into pigs. Pretty cool scene, no problem. But then they absolutely ruin this by having Odysseus come and negotiate with her, even though she had a knife on his throat. So imagine you're the witch, right? You just turned 11 of his soldiers into pigs. He's right in front of you. He's about to kill you. You got a knife on his throat, so you managed to get the first move on a soldier, Odysseus. You grabbed his knife and you put it on his throat. Now, why would you not kill him? Why would you not? Why would you even entertain the idea of turning his men back? Now, I know that's how the mythology worked, but in the mythology, Odysseus spent a year courting her, and then finally she, out of reasoning and out of a year of being with Odysseus, decided to turn the men from pigs into men. But here, it took like a minute of dialogue, and she was convinced to let go, call it a treason, and turn the men from pigs into men. Now, let's break down the logic of this. If you were her, would you want 12 people in your house who could kill you and you just turn them into pigs, but you're like, no, you know what? Actually, let me turn them back into men. They're reasonable. I can be reasoned with because I'm a woman. Women in this movie barely do anything bad, and they can be reasoned with apparently. So there's no bad woman villains here It's just women who have their own traumas, and they go in a political rant about how men are pigs and how men are actually just disgusting, commit all these acts, but they can be reasoned with. They're super nice, and they're even willing to feed them. So yeah, didn't make any sense to me. Waste of time. Logically, it was just a mess. And the whole thing was a political message about how men are pigs and women are not, and they could be reasoned with. Now, I get if you're trying to portray women in a good light, but you're allowed to have strong woman villains, right? You can have that. It's not a bad thing. It's not a problem. So why wouldn't you go and have that? That's apparently because you can't have woman villains. Women can't be bad guys. But then you're disempowering them from playing a bad guy, right? So it's just nonsense there. Um, then they constantly hop back and forth between Calypso, who's meant to be this beautiful goddess, daughter of one of the main gods, and she apparently had hostaged him in a mythology and raped him and took advantage of him. But in this movie, she's a great person. She's constantly feeding him, healing him, trying to make him recollect his memories. And she even built a boat for him and helped him give him the exact tip he needed to get back home. Which just again makes no sense. They didn't want to have a bad woman villain, so they turned her into a great character, even though in the mythology she's a rapist, she's taking advantage of him, and she's drugging him essentially. But here she wasn't that. She was actually pretty good as a human being, as a god. She was pretty moral. She helped him. She healed him. She gave him strength, and she gave him a tip and helped him build a draft to go to his home. Yeah, just nonsense again. Then we had the Cyclops scene, right? The Cyclops, whatever the fuck it's called. Um, Again, just terrible. I mean, the logic is just weak. His men go into this little tiny cave, apparently. I mean, I was expecting a big cave, big chase scenes in the cave, a little bit of horror, but it was so bad. This was the worst part of the movie, actually, where apparently this giant Cyclops eats two men and then immediately falls asleep right there where there's an army of men right at his feet, right? And there's a fire, so he can clearly see them, right? He's got one eye granted, but he can see them. He's looking at them. But instead of killing them or eating more of them, he just falls right to sleep. Um, and then this happens the next day, right? The next day, some of the men escape, the rest don't escape. The Cyclops again kills two people and then falls right to sleep. And then that night they decide, let's burn his eyes, or let's stick a fire into his nose or something. And then the Cyclops just turns around and starts crying. And then the next morning, the Cyclops again opens the fucking door, and the sheep escape, and some of the men escape. Somehow he's got his fingers there, so he feels a soldier, he throws a fit, and the men escape altogether. But then Odysseus, being the scumbag that he is, shoots him in the eye with a little arrow. And again, the Cyclops chases them until a meter away from the boat, and then he gives up the chase, cries a little bit more, prays to Poseidon, and Poseidon doesn't do anything, doesn't kill anybody, doesn't cost them anything. The sea just takes him to the next island. So it's a bunch of weird island hopping with really shallow dialogue, really shallow logic, and turning away from the mythology wherever they can. And yeah, the biggest villain in this movie is a level 1 suitor, like your equivalent to a beginning level NPC that you kill in a video game. That's their main big bad guy, right? And again, this guy, I mean, he reasoned with Anne Hathaway. He told them, hey, he's been gone for 10 years. Like, I'm offering a pretty good deal. We can be kings and queens. As soon as your son comes of age, then, he can be the king. But if we have our own child, then maybe he's the king because we're married, right? He offers her a great deal. She throws a fit and says no. And then he immediately starts fucking the slave and just being a villain, generic villain, bad guy. Then they introduce more bad guys, more generic bad level 1 suitors. And then there's a weird blind guy who's just terribly actor, just terrible all around. That blind guy who gives wisdom, but he's not wise. You're expecting him to bust out in some good karate moves or have an action scene, but he never has one. He just gets bullied. He's supposed to be like the sympathy character, but he's just so shallow. as a character. Doesn't say anything wise, and his dialogues are pretty weak as well. And the son, the worst. I mean, that the way Tom Holland was casted and the way the son was casted, he's a weak, pathetic man. I mean, he had trouble killing a basic housemaid who went upstairs to throw weapons downstairs to help the level one suitors defeat Odysseus, right? And Tom Holland, the main king at the end, struggled to win one single fight against the level one suitor. So, yeah, apparently anyone can be a king in that place. You just don't need to be good at warfare or military or fighting. As long as you're Odysseus' son, you could be as pathetic as you want to be. But because he has to go on this mad adventure again with Anne Hathaway now, he can be the king. If you're looking for a good movie, watch Troy. Watch any movie. The Return was made 2 years ago. It's a great movie about Odysseus coming back to face these level one suitors, and it's well acted. It looks like it was shot in Greece. The environment looks hot, and it looks the way actors look. They look actually Greek. Now, granted, they have diversity as well in that movie, what I call forced diversity, and what I would call cultural appropriation in white European cultures. But that's Hollywood now, so that's everywhere. But yeah, in general, it was terrible. It was weak acting, weak dialogue, terrible dialogue, I would say, and no logic or consistency, no build up, no climax. By the second hour, you're getting fucking bored of this movie, and you're just wanting him to fucking go home, kill the level one suitors like he's gonna, right? These are not bad villains. They don't do anything impressive. The islands look terrible. It just doesn't feel like Greece. It feels like a Nordic adventure of Matt Damon and Anne Hathaway. That's what we should call it, the Nordic adventures of Matt Damon and Anne Hathaway and their weak son, Tom Holland. So, yeah, it's a really bad movie. I'm sick of these forced diversities. I'm sick of European cultures being appropriated. Meanwhile, the non-European cultures being super protected and being given massive budgets to make terrible movies as well. But yeah, it just feels like Hollywood hates Europe, hates its own white heritage, and we're just getting to see every mythology, every story get violated with forced diversity, bad dialogues, weak acting. So don't watch the movie. It's terrible. It sucks. And Christopher Nolan is really pretentious. And I would say at this point, just you're better off not watching any modern movie and just watching 90s movies or early 2000s. But yeah, that's my thought. Odyssey sucked. Don't watch it. And yeah, that's just my analysis of it.